At 7:23 on a Thursday morning, a black Mercedes SUV with tinted windows slowed down on Tema Motorway in Accra and stopped at the edge of the road. The hazard lights came on. The driver did not get out. For 43 seconds, the car sat there while morning traffic streamed past it. Transport buses grinding north, Okadas threading between lanes. A flatbed truck carrying sacks of cement that left a thin gray dust in the air. The person behind the wheel did not move. They were looking at something on the roadside. A woman. A portable aluminum cart. A small gas burner with a pot of rice and beans the size of a bathtub, and a handwritten sign in blue marker on a piece of cardboard that read, Wacky, F-H-A-H-A. She was 61 years old, and she was serving a man in work boots his breakfast without looking up. And she was wearing a housecoat that had been navy blue once and was now the color of a sky that couldn't decide. The driver of the Mercedes sat very still, because he had not seen this woman in 11 years. But he had thought about her almost every week since, and what she did not know, as Shay spooned rice into a black plastic bag with the practiced efficiency of someone who had been doing it long enough that her hands no longer needed her eyes. What she absolutely did not know was that the man sitting behind that tinted glass owed her everything. Her name was Constance Antwi Boateng. She was 61 years old, 5'3", and 108 pounds, which was 7 pounds less than she had weighed when she retired from teaching 3 years ago after 31 years at Achimota Secondary School in Accra. The weight had come off in the way that weight comes off when a pension is delayed 3 times and a landlord does not delay once. She wore the faded housecoat over a cotton dress that she had bought from Camtamanto Market for 12 cedis. The dress was clean. She ironed it every morning before 5:30, before she loaded the cart, before she walked the 11 minutes to her spot beside the concrete barrier on Tema Motorway. She ironed it because she had been ironing her clothes since she was a girl in Kumasi, and she was not going to stop now. On her feet were flat sandals with a crack along the left sole that she had pressed together with a rubber band she found on her kitchen floor. She had not thrown the rubber band away because the sandals still held. In the pocket of the housecoat was a folded piece of paper she had been carrying for 4 months. A letter from the Ghana Education Service informing her that her pension review was complete and that she would receive a response within 45 to 60 working days. Today was the 47th working day. She had stopped counting at 45. On her left wrist she wore a small watch that had belonged to her mother. The watch had stopped working in 2019, but she had never taken it off, because her mother had given it to her the morning of her first day of teaching and said, "Time is the only thing you will ever truly give another person. Constance. Make sure you know what it costs." She had taught economics and civic education for 31 years. In her classroom, she had a rule that she kept posted above the board in red marker. Every person in this room is worth listening to. She had a second rule. She never posted but enforced without exception. If you are struggling, you come to me before you give up. In 31 years, she had taught over 2,000 students. She remembered the names of most of them. She remembered the ones who struggled most particularly, not with pity but with something closer to a specific kind of attention. The same way a craftsperson remembers a difficult piece of work, not because it broke them, but because it required the most from them. She remembered Kolade Mensah. She remembered him specifically. It had come to her in his second year of senior secondary school, the way a drowning person comes to a surface, sudden, desperate, gasping. He could not pass economics. It could not explain the concept of supply and demand. He could not make sense of GDP. He sat in the front row because she had put him there. He came to her office on 11 separate Thursdays between January and June of his second year. She had not considered this a burden. She had considered it a job. He passed. He passed with the highest mark in his cohort that year. He went to university in Accra. He got a scholarship for a master's degree in financial economics in London. He came back. He built a firm. The firm grew. By the time he was 43 years old, Kolade Mensah was the CEO of Mensah Capital Group, a private equity and infrastructure fund, with offices in Accra, Lagos, and Nairobi, managing assets his former classmates could not name without the help of a zeros calculator. He had been profiled in the Business and Financial Times. He had spoken at a conference in Davos. He had been photographed in a suit that cost more than Constance Antwi Boateng's pension arrears. It had also since the Tuesday 3 years ago when one of his analysts mentioned in passing that Achimota Secondary was hosting a retirement celebration for a Mrs. Antwi Boateng, been carrying something he could not name, in the part of the chest where unfinished business lives. It had meant to go to the retirement celebration. He had had a board meeting. He had sent a card with a gift voucher for 200 Sadies, and written inside, "You are the reason. Thank you." He had not heard back. He had assumed she received it. He had assumed she was fine. He put the car in park. He was not a man given to impulsive decisions. The business press described him as measured. His operations director, a woman named Essie, who had worked for him for 6 years, described him as someone who made every decision twice, once fast and once slow, and who only acted on the second one. What he was doing right now was neither fast nor slow. He was doing something he had not done since he was 22 years old, sitting in the front row of an economics classroom, which was acting on instinct without a plan. He got out of the car. He walked to the cart. He stood beside the man in work boots and waited until the man took his bag of waki and walked away. Then he looked at Constance Antwi Boateng, and she looked at him. And for a moment, the morning traffic and the cement dust and the Tema motorway were gone, and they were standing in the same room where time is the only thing you will ever truly give another person. She did not recognize him immediately. 11 years is enough to rearrange a face. The jaw was wider now. The glasses were different. The boy she remembered was thin in the way boys are thin when they grow fast and eat erratically. This man was not thin. It filled the space beside her cart the way a person fills a space when they have learned not to make themselves small. She looked at him for 2 seconds longer than she looked at other customers. Then she reached for a bag to serve him. "How much?" she said. Her voice was the same. He had been wondering if her voice would be the same. "Ma," he sighed. "It's Holiday, Mrs. Antwi Boateng. It's Holiday Mensa." She stopped with the bag in her hand. She looked at him again, differently this time. The way you look at something you recognize but cannot yet place. The way your brain reaches toward the memory before your mouth can name it. Then her hand came down to the edge of the cart and rested there. She set the bag down. She did not speak for 4 seconds. "Colade," she said finally. It was not a question. It was not an exclamation. It was the quiet sound of a number being added to a column that has been waiting for it. He sighed, "Can I talk to you? Not here. Somewhere you can sit down." She looked at the cart. The burner was still on. There were 3 more customers walking toward her from the bus stop 40 meters back. "I have customers," she said. "I know," he said. "I'll wait." He waited. He leaned against the concrete barrier in his suit jacket and his meeting shoes and watched Constance Antwi Boateng serve 9 people breakfast without ever looking rushed, without ever losing the precision with which she tied the bags, without ever stopping the quiet proprietary motion of someone who knew every inch of her equipment. He watched and he remembered. He remembered the way she used to turn from the board and check his face. Not the faces of the students who were struggling loudly, the ones who waved their confusion like a flag, but his face. The face of the student who was very good at looking like everything was fine. She had learned, by the 3rd Thursday, to read the particular stillness of his jaw when he had not understood something and was too proud to ask. She would turn from the board and say, without looking directly at him, "Let's take that again from the beginning." He had never thanked her for that properly. By 8:15, the bus stop crowd had thinned. A woman named Afia, who ran a phone credit stand 20 meters down the barrier, came and sat with the cart for a moment. She and Constance had an arrangement. Constance wiped her hands on a cloth and walked with Colade to a small cement bench on the other side of the barrier, in the thin morning shade of a billboard advertising mobile money services. She sat with the straightness of someone who had spent 31 years at a classroom board and had never unlearned it. He sat beside her. It was a man who spoke in boardrooms for a living, and the sentence he had prepared in the car, the measured, second decision sentence, did not come. What came instead was, "Why didn't you call me? I would have come." She looked at him for a moment. "Call you for what, Colade?" she said. It was not a question either. "Your pension was delayed. I read about it. The GS arrears backlog. I could have helped." "You could have," she said. "But I didn't call you." "Why not?" She folded her hands in her lap. The watch on her left wrist caught the morning sun. "Because when I taught you," she said, "I was not lending you anything. I was doing my job. You don't owe me something for a person doing their job. She looked at the billboard across the road. Besides, she said, the wacky is good. I learned from my mother. This is not a sad story, Colette. This is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. This is how I spend my mornings until the GES sorts itself out. Don't put a sad story on it. If this story is already sitting with you the way I think it is, stay with me. Because what Colette said next, and what he found out over the 3 weeks that followed, is the part that changes everything. A side, I want to help. Not as debt. I'm not doing this as debt. I'm doing it because I can. He paused. And because I haven't done it yet, and I should have. She was quiet for a moment. The mobile money billboard threw a thin red shadow across the cement. A boost groaned past. You can start, she said, by eating breakfast. She stood up and went back to the cart and spooned rice and beans into a black plastic bag with shito and 2 pieces of fried plantain, and tied the top with the practiced double twist she used for every customer. She brought it to him and set it on the bench. She said, 3 months ago, I submitted a formal complaint to the GES review office about the pension arrears. I have a case number. The arrears go back 14 months. She sat back down. If you want to help, that is where to start. Not here. She touched the edge of the cart. This is mine. I built this. Don't touch this. Eate the waki. It was extraordinary. He was back on Friday morning, not to the roadside. E had called the GAS review office on Thursday afternoon from his office on the 6th floor of a building on the Accra Ring Road, and had been transferred 3 times and placed on hold for 22 minutes. Then he had called his firm's legal counsel, a compact, precise woman named Mam Serwa, who had graduated first in her class at the University of Ghana School of Law, and who had, in her years working for Mensa Capital, developed a specialized competence in institutional bureaucracy that she described as knowing which door to knock on and how hard. Mame Serwa called the GS Pension Review Administrator's office directly on Friday morning. She did not call as a lawyer. She called as a representative of a party with a material interest in the expeditive processing of a specific case number, and she used language that was polite, precise, and left no meaningful room for delay. By 11:30 a.m., the GAS Pension Review Office had confirmed that Constance Antwi Boateng's case would be escalated to priority processing with a decision within 5 working days. The administrator explained that the office received many inquiries of this nature. Mame Serwa said, I understand. Then she said the case number again. The administrator understood. But Mame Serwa had also, in the process of preparing the call, pulled the full case file. And what she found in that file was not just a delayed pension. The pension delay was the surface. Underneath it was a second issue, one that had been sitting in a different GS office for 7 months, a housing allowance discrepancy. When Constance had retired, her 22 years of continuous service in government housing had qualified her for a retirement housing settlement. The settlement had been calculated incorrectly, a clerical error that reduced the figure by a third. The correct amount, before any corrections, was 63,000 cedis. Mame Serwa brought this to Colette's office at 2 p.m. on Friday. She set the file on his desk. He looked at it for a long time. She doesn't know, he said. The JES sent a letter about the pension in April. There's no evidence they ever communicated the housing settlement discrepancy separately. She may have received a generic processing letter. She would not have known to read it as a housing issue. He sat back in his chair. Outside the window, the Accra Ring Road was turning gold in the afternoon light. He thought about a woman ironing a cotton dress at 5 in the morning before walking 11 minutes to a concrete barrier on Tema motorway. He thought about a rubber band holding a sandal together. He thought about 14 months of arrears and a calculation error and a folded letter in a housecoat pocket counting down 47 working days. Fix it, he said. All of it. What's the process? Mom, Serwa told him. The process involved a formal correction application to the GES Housing Settlement Division, corroborated service records, a 2-signature authorization from department heads, and, under normal circumstances, a processing period of 8 to 16 weeks. Under circumstances involving a legal firm presenting a complete correction package, with all supporting documentation prepared and delivered in advance, and with a specific statutory rights citation Mami Serwa had identified in the Public Service Pensions Act. Possibly faster. How much faster? Colad said. I would plan for 3 weeks, she said. He said, what do you need from me? On Monday, he went back to the Wake cart and brought his assistant, a young man named Emmanuel, who carried a folder and who, to his credit, did not look at the roadside cart with any expression that could be read as surprise. Colad explained to Constance in the same direct language she had used with him on Thursday what Mami Serwa had found. He explained it on the cement bench in the thin shade of the mobile money billboard. He did not editorialize. A stated what the error was, what it had cost her, and what the correct figure should be. Constance listened. She sat with the watch on her wrist and her hands in her lap, and she listened the way she used to listen in her office on Thursday afternoons when a student tried to explain why they had not understood, completely, without interruption, without performing any emotion she had not yet verified. When they finished, she said, 14 months. Yes, he said. She nodded once. She said, what do you need from me? She signed the authorization documents that afternoon at a table in the back of a bread shop on Osu Oxford Street. Because Constance said the notary Emmanuel had called was 7 minutes from the cart by foot, and she could have Afia watch things for an hour. She read every page before she signed it. She did not sign anything she had not read. Emmanuel, who processed documents for a living, noted privately that she read faster than most of his firm's own staff. 3 weeks later, on a Tuesday, Mame Serwa received written confirmation from the GS. The pension arrears, 14 months, 47,000 cedis, had been processed and would transfer within 3 to 5 business days. The housing settlement correction had been approved. The full corrected figure, 63,000 cedis, would follow in the same payment cycle. Total, 110 million cedis transferred to the account Constance had provided by that Friday. Colade was in Nairobi for 2 days on Thursday and Friday. He called Emmanuel from the hotel at 9 p.m. Thursday to confirm the transfer had processed. Emmanuel confirmed it had. Colad said, good. He sat in the hotel room for a while. He thought about 11 years of Thursday mornings he had not thought to ask whether she needed anything. Then he ordered room service and went over the materials for his morning meeting, because thinking about something you cannot change is the only form of time travel that goes nowhere. He called Constance on Saturday morning. She answered on the second ring. It came, he said. Friday morning, she said. I checked 3 times. He waited. Thank you, Colad, she said. For the lawyer, for finding the housing thing. I didn't know about that. Mame Serwa found it, he said. I just paid her. Then thank Mami Serwa, she said. And thank yourself. You stopped the car. There was a moment. The Saturday morning traffic was moving behind whatever window she was near. He said, are you going to keep the cart? She was quiet for a moment. For a while, she said. The cart is not about money, Colade. The cart is about 6 o'clock in the morning and something to do and a reason to get dressed, and Afia telling me about her sister's baby and the man in the work boots who comes every day and never says much but always says thank you. The cart is about all of that. She paused. But I am going to buy a new sandal. He laughed. It was the first time he had laughed in that specific way in longer than he could place. The way you laugh when something is funny and also true and also cost you something you didn't know you were holding. Colade Mensah was 43 years old. He ran a company with 3 offices and 47 employees. He had spoken at Davos and been photographed in a suit and built from 11 dispatched Thursday afternoons in a classroom at Achimota Secondary School, a career that looked from the outside like a story about discipline and intelligence and capital. All of those things were true, but the engine underneath all of those things, the specific belief that every problem had a mechanism that could be found if you went back far enough and looked carefully enough, that belief had a source. It had been placed there by a woman who turned from the board and said, let's take that again from the beginning, not because she was required to, but because she had decided, with the permanence of a policy, that every person in her room was worth the time it took. She had given him time, specifically, deliberately, voluntarily. She had given it when she had 40 other students and a marking stack and a classroom board full of supply and demand curves that nobody in the front row could explain. She had given it and not kept a ledger of it and not waited for repayment and not mentioned it once in 31 years, which is how you know the gift was real. The world has a long habit of standing in the presence of something extraordinary and not recognizing it until it has already changed the room. We walk past it on Tama Motorway. We pass it in the school corridor. We sit beside it in a front row and watch it turn from the board to check on us. And we note it distantly, the way you note weather. Present. Unremarkable. Easy to forget until the day you are standing in a hotel room in Nairobi at 9 p.m. thinking about rubber bands and ironing boards and the specific cost of 31 years of other people's. Thursday mornings. Some gifts do not look like gifts at the moment of their giving. They look like a Tuesday. They look like an extra half hour at the end of a school day. They look like a voice that says, "Let's take that again from the beginning." You carry the gift without knowing you're carrying it, and you build on top of it and build on top of it. And one day you are 43 years old in a suit that costs what it costs, and you drive past a woman serving waki at a concrete barrier. And the full weight of everything she gave you lands at once, the way rain lands, sudden, specific, the kind that soaks through in 30 seconds. You cannot erase what a person pours into you. You cannot repossess a skill they built in your hands, or a belief they pressed into your thinking when you were 16 and failing and too proud to admit it. The ones who shaped you are always there, in the structure of every good thing you ever made, whether they are in a house in Kumasi, or at a desk in a government office waiting on a letter, or standing on Tema Motorway at 7 in the morning, with a handwritten sign and a pot of rice and beans, and a dignity so intact it doesn't need anyone else to notice it. Constance Antwi Boateng got her new sandals on the following Saturday. She bought 2 pairs. She kept the old ones. She put them on the shelf in her front room beside the watch that stopped working in 2019, because she had not kept them to throw them away. She had kept them to remember what it costs. By the following month, she had enrolled in a part-time certificate program in social enterprise development at a training center in East Legon. On the registration form, in the field marked current occupation, she wrote, "Teacher, not retired teacher, not former teacher, teacher, because 31 years does not stop being true when you stop being paid for it." The Wakey cart runs Tuesday through Saturday 6 to 9:30, and Afia still comes and tells her about the baby. The man in the work boots still comes and still doesn't say much and still always says thank you. The sign is still cardboard. She has not changed the price. Now let me ask you something, and I want you to sit with it before you answer. Think about the person who stayed late for you, who took the extra time when they did not have to, who found what you could not explain and explained it back to you in a language you could reach. Think about the last time you acknowledged what that cost them. Not the last time you thought about it, the last time you actually stopped the car. Because some people are on Tema Motorway right now, not metaphorically, literally, doing something small with enormous skill and receiving nothing back from the years they gave you. The question is not whether you owe them. Constance would tell you herself that you don't. The question is what kind of person stops the car. Leave your answer in the comments. I really want to read it. Subscribe for more stories about hidden strength, quiet power, and the people the world overlooks until they change everything. I'll see you in the next one.